Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Sound good?
Yes, sir! I know who I am!
Did IQs just drop shot
That could have
while I was away?
I have a plan. I like this shit.
You know, it's exciting.
Dance off, bro.
It is your
Me and you.
Welcome to the Atlantic Screen Connection Podcast.
Let the games begin.
Hello and welcome to the Atlantic Screen Connection Podcast with Jason and Lee. I'm Jason.
I'm Lee.
And we're going to be shaking things up a little bit this week because my brain still needs a little bit of a break. So before we get back into deep dives and whatnot, besides, you're going to be hearing this after, so who really gives a shit? What I want to get to right now is who's with us this week. We're really privileged to have Mr. Non Wels from You, Me, Empathy on the show with us. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jason. Hello, Lee. How are you guys?
You don't get to ask us that. Nobody gets that. We don't even ask that of each other.
Answer the question.
Good. Under duress now.
He's been at home with his girlfriend for too long right now.
I've been without the podcast for so long. That's the thing. We took a long ass break, and now I'm still.
Oh yeah, I still need more time to be honest. But
Did you say a long ass break or a long ass break?
Both.
The pause
Entirely
is important.
Both. Yeah, no, it's one of those dual meaning things. It's like a language.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm doing fine, Nolan. Thanks for asking.
How are you now?
I'm doing great. I'm a little bit hopped up on cold medicine, but I'm good.
Yeah, I mean that's the best.
Oh, man,
high.
I should have
The greatest
gotten myself
high,
some
the
of
sweetest
that.
high.
It's up there.
Exactly.
It's up there.
I do that myself. So are you like borderline sleepy or are you doing good?
Yeah, I'm just got a little brain fuzz going on. This past weekend
God,
was a
drowsy
struggle.
wells.
Yeah, drowsy wells. That's right.
That's fine because it fits our new show format where we are relaxed and we talk about films and a what did you watch this week segment, and it's all very chill. So drowsiness is acceptable. We accept that.
I'm glad you accept.
Yeah. Oh, we're just gonna be peppering these little episodes to have a little bit of fun with people that we want to bring on and whatnot. Because we've realized now, anyway, Lee and I, that whenever we want to bring someone on to our regular format, when we're doing the deep dive, it kind of gets a little fucked.
It's a little overwhelming.
A little overwhelming to try to fit someone into those types of the conversations. And I mean, we've realized that our format doesn't lend well to guests, which kind of blows. But at the same time, we really, really enjoy talking to people. So we figured
that's
we'd
the downside.
do
We're
these.
social creatures.
Exactly. Lee and I get on each other's nerves now, so we have to bring Noan in.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys.
All right, hey man. So seeing as that you're here, you have a new show out, and it's doing quite well from what I can see. So can you tell us a little bit about that, what the concept is, and then after that we'll get into the movie stuff.
Sure. Yeah, and thanks for paying attention. Yes, the show's called You, Me, Empathy, and it's essentially creating a safe space for everyday folks, silly boy dunderheads like myself, to talk about our mental health struggles and to create a space for vulnerability and empathy and compassion in telling our stories. And so each week I talk to someone about a particular topic, whether it's depression or PTSD, or this most recent episode was on the topic of meditation, mindfulness, and yoga. You know, just all these various topics around the topic of mental health, to hopefully create a dialogue that will, sort of break down the stigma of mental illness and mental health, conversation in our culture. So that's the show, and I love it.
Thank fuck that you love it as well. I mean, on top of the fact that it's doing good work, it's actually important stuff. It does kind of help when you enjoy doing it.
It does. It definitely does. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for those types of shows because, like you said, there is a stigma around a lot of those things. Mental health in society is not something that people like to talk about openly. Having a safe space is usually very difficult. I mean, even like I don't know, most of the people that you're talking to today, even if you stare them right in the eyes, you have no idea what the hell's going on, and because they have no idea if they can trust you with any of the stuff that they're going through. And so, yeah, I think it was a really great concept. And I remember when you talked to me a little bit about it before you launched, I was like, geez, first of all, congrats, because it takes a lot of balls to do what you did and create a show like that, because not everyone can do that at all. And so I applaud that a lot. And the reason I say that is because I couldn't do it at all. I can't do what you do. I can't talk about those things. And it's because I'm just not comfortable doing it. That being said, I will come to talk to you because I like you as a person. But at the same time, I've always had trouble opening up, even when I'm talking to my kids or when I'm talking to my girlfriend and stuff like that. I always go through 6 or 7 different rows before saying exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
And then instead of like really talking about how I feel, I'll break down and cry when I watch The Last Jedi and Luke Skywalker dies. Then they'll ask me what the fuck's going on. And I'll be like, I can't talk about it.
Way to express yourself.
I think, and the listeners should know that Jason will be a guest on Yumi Empathy, and it's also important to recognize that like we each have we all process differently. We each have our own sort of specific journeys and ways that we process our emotions, and no one way is right or wrong, you know. And so when I have guests on, I'm not like Oprah or something. I'm not like trying to get you to like cry or whatever. No. It's just a conversation about your story and whatever. I mean, I'm going to make you cry, Jason. That's for sure. But, you know.
Okay, cool. You going to give me a car?
Yeah, that's right. You get a cry.
Gives away a car.
Can I be a guest? Fucking hell. I want a car. Cool.
Oh.
Yeah, so now we're gonna brush away the important work you do and talk about the absolutely unimportant shit that we do, which is films.
Not true.
Yeah. Speaking of things that make us cry, I watched Cloverfield Paradox.
3.
Morning, beautiful.
2.
I'm getting sick of only seeing you on a screen.
1.
Please, God. Be on our side.
Standing by for your go.
Turn that shit on.
Fingers crossed.
It's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know what you do?
What the hell is happening?
Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there.
The Earth. It's gone.
It's big, blue, full of angry people. Keep looking, you'll find it.
My God.
Great.
We were talking about it just a little bit earlier. And I don't know. Nolan, have you seen it?
I have not.
No? And Lee, you did.
I did, yeah. In fact, right. I was one of the only, maybe, crusader of this film on Twitter.
That happens to us a lot.
Well,
for some reason, I had a great time. I sat down like when they said, "Hey, Cloverfield is playing." I don't think I watched it the same day.
Yeah, I watched it
on a Monday night, and I told Leslie, I said, "Hey, do you mind? I want to watch this sci-fi flick because Mike wants to talk about it. We're going to be talking about how like Netflix is an non-event now, where like people were going to flock to just their living room." You know, to watch these movies, you know, these
like
tentpole films that are being released online and streaming.
TV films and TV series, you know, people still do that, I imagine.
You know what? I haven't had cable in such a long time.
Yeah, no, not me either. That's why I have to imagine it.
No?
No, I haven't had it for ages.
I mean, that's the wise way to go. That's what Netflix is for. We're just moving it to Netflix. That, you know, like, it's Monday night, the next episode of blank is on, Lost.
I mean, Netflix is sort of experimenting with those schedules again, weekly episodes and things like that, so...
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, man. To me, the fun thing, and this, we're still talking around the movie as opposed to talking about the movie, and I like that because I think the conversation deserves to be around and not about... Because look, I don't know how. I'd like to see the numbers. You know what happened with Netflix. I mean, how many people actually flooded to go watch, and how much streaming went through, and all that. Because if you launch a trailer, you know, I think was it 3 hours before it actually came out on Netflix, roughly. I think was the Super Bowl time, and people were talking about it like crazy. You know what I mean? And it's not like Star Wars: The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, where you get your first trailer a year out, and then you have that momentum build gradually and all that. People were genuinely excited and surprised, and I think that that's what I appreciated most about the movie, is the fact that they were like, hey, you know what? You know that thing you like? Well, here's another one, and you get it in 3 hours. And I'm like, what the fuck? Really? I think that was really fun because they didn't have to show anything. The marketing didn't cost much. They paid that $5 million probably for the spot at the Super Bowl, and that's about it. You know, it's still a pretty penny, but at the same time, I'm just saying that, you know, I kind of appreciated the fact that I I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, maybe, obviously, the discourse around it now is more like, well, there's a reason for that, and it's because the movie was terrible. They didn't want you to see. They didn't want to show you a bunch of things where you're like, oh, this reminds me of this, or this reminds me of that, because it is very tropey as a movie, and they do it really poorly, in a good way. But, I don't know, I really appreciated the fact that they did that. You know, I think that a lot of movies should do that more. Obviously, I'm not in control on any of these things. I'm going with my gut feeling. I have no background in finance or producing or anything like that, so I have no stake in the game. I'm just saying that from an outside perspective as a guy watching these things, I thought it was really fun, clever, and I wish that a lot of more people would do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the film, I mean, it's not a great film in itself if you turn the conversation to it, but I mean, it's well shot. It's paced really well, I think, is the important thing. Like, you only burn like an hour and 20 minutes of your life. I mean, you waste more time on YouTube every week or every day if you're some people. I mean, and you could do a lot worse, and it had a lot of fun, interesting moments sprinkled throughout a narrative that was kind of stupid. But like, you know, there are way worse
Chris O'Dowd's
times.
arm just kind of going across the floor.
I mean, that was great.
Who thinks of that?
It's like,
Who's reading the script?
One of my favorite lines of the year, which is, "What are you talking about, arm?" I mean, that's amazing. I don't care. I'd spend an hour and 20 minutes to get to something like that. So I mean,
I've watched it twice so far.
Whoa.
And that's the funny thing.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm never gonna. Oh no, man! I'm gonna revisit this movie because there's a lot of funny shit going on. A lot of funny shit. They talk about what they call plot holes, which I think is not whatever. It's not a thing. I think that this is really, really pleasant for me anyway to go back and revisit this one because it's just so dumb and it's really, really fun. But anyway, so if you're planning on watching Cloverfield Paradox, and I hope you will because it is dumb fun. I don't know, like ever since Christopher Nolan came and kind of just based everything in reality, then we all look at movies like Cloverfield Paradox and say, that doesn't make any sense. It's not supposed to.
No, yeah.
It's supposed to just be what it is and just take it for what it is. And I think that that's what the charm of the movie is. I had a better time watching Cloverfield Paradox than I did watching Justice League, and that's saying a lot.
Or nothing at all.
Anyway, but Nolan had some horror movies that he wanted to talk about.
Yeah, sure. And I was just going to point out that I had a better time not watching Justice League.
I can guarantee it.
Yeah, so I've been sick, as I mentioned, and I've been watching... Jessica doesn't watch horror movies with me, so I watch these on my own. The first one is The Ritual. It's called The Ritual. It's on Netflix.
Right.
Rob would have loved this place. He's a good man. The best of us.
You know, they have walking trails in England. Pubs.
Come on, man. Where's your soul?
It's twisted. It's twisted.
All right, yep. Easy. Look, we go southwest through here. We cut the journey in half.
What, through the forest?
Yeah, why not?
We should have gone to Vegas.
Oh, you'd have found something to fall over in Vegas too, mate. Now, is it me, or is it really quiet in here?
It's been gutted. Could be hunters out here.
A bait.
Possibly. Or it's the bit they don't show you in the nature documentary. It's a warning.
We shouldn't be here.
Where the hell are we, Hutch?
We should pitch the tents.
This is ridiculous, man.
Luke, you're getting soaked.
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear anything. Come on.
Talk about it then or not?
It was a nightmare, Phil.
Well, what happened to you then?
We got spooked and we had bad dreams. All right?
I woke up last night. Look at this.
Nothing has done that to you. You've done it to yourself.
Why do you have to deny everything I say?
Because I do not value your judgment.
We need to be working together, man.
What the fuck is that?
Fucking hell, we don't know where we are!
Came out in the last couple of months, produced by our friend Gollum, Andy Serkis, and it's about a group of friends.
I would love him to be our friend, by the way.
I would love that too. I know, right? I just kind of like preempt that, our friend for any sort of famous person.
I mean, it could happen.
In hopes of one day.
Exactly.
It happening.
It's just aspirational goals.
Yeah, exactly. But the ritual is about a group of friends who get together. They experience a trauma. One of their, I'm not spoiling anything, one of their within the first couple of minutes, one of their buddies dies, and then they go, like 6 months later to this sort of camping trip in, I think, like Scandinavia or something.
Right.
Norway. And then they run into some creepiness in the woods, and it's not the most inventive horror film.
I mean,
but
that description isn't even, that's not even on the scale of inventivity.
No, you're right. It's like every horror film, but there are some cool shots, and the design of like some of the, how do I say this without spoiling anything? The design of some of the creatures in it, or the sort of the evil force in it, is pretty inventive and kind of cool looking.
Cool.
Nice.
I seen
it's not
in the UK.
Yeah.
I seen a trailer for this before I was watching some film a couple of months ago, and I was like, I'm not watching that, obviously, because it's a horror film. But at the time, the way the trailer worked, it made it look like it was a bit of a lads' comedy. I don't know. Is that in it, or because the way you're describing it doesn't sound like it at any point? It's not like a cabin in the woods scenario, or a...
No, it's definitely not a cabin in the woods. There's no real comedy in it. Maybe at the beginning, but I will say that it's set in a beautiful area. It's a beautiful setting. I think they were on location probably.
The richest comedy is beauty.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a thing I watched recently. It's somewhat forgettable, but I think it effective and scary in certain moments. I liked the design of the creatures, like I said. And
would you recommend it to people, or is it?
Yeah, I think I would recommend it. I would give it like a sort of a B- sort of grade. I would recommend it. There are aspects of it, aspects about it that I enjoyed, but it's not. Again, it's not. It's not the most inventive thing.
So yeah, if you're looking for a like a derivative horror film and you've seen them all, then The Ritual is another one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you've seen that stuff before. The actors are good. Rafe Spall is the main guy. He's always
all right.
good, but
he's Life of Pi actor.
Yeah. So he's good, but it's on Netflix. If you have Netflix, it's worth watching.
Awesome.
All right. Are you a big horror fan? Is that the genre that you gravitate to the most?
No, not the most. I do like horror, though. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's the thing. How hard is it to be inventive when it comes to horror now? There's a lot of movies that have come out recently that seem to kind of want to revitalize things. I think Lights Out was one of them that was kind of interesting. Apparently, it was based on a short film from the same. Get Out, obviously. I think we might actually be heading towards, like, horror has kind of just been having some sort of revitalization.
I think you're right in that the horror genre is doing a lot of, we've had a lot of great horror the last 6-7 years for sure. The thing I love about the horror genre, and I've said this before on some podcasts, is that it's it's where a lot, as a film nerd, it's where a lot of like people get their starts, right? And it's also a genre where you can create, effective storytelling cheaply, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you're, and if you have like good, well-developed characters, a decent story and some inventiveness in the scare, aspects of the story, like, then great. That's awesome. Like that's a well-done horror film usually.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. It's definitely, it's one that you can make sing with very little. Like the best one I can think of in latest years, other than Get Out, is the Witch, And I mean, that's basically a bunch of people standing around the woods doing nothing for an hour and a half, and then a couple of little flashes of a goat. You know, there's not a lot to it, but it's tense and horrible the entire way through, and it plays with really, really careful imagery instead of trying to make big bombastic scares or anything. It just tries to creep you the fuck out, and that's why it's so effective, and it's a great benchmark for what horror movies are capable of, because there's almost nothing to it except good writing and good visuals, you know. So I mean, good acting, admittedly, you know, the pieces are good, but there's not a lot budget wise to it that really makes it step out from any other horror film. It's just, you know, talent. that most rare of assets.
I have to get to that. I bought The Witch, and I haven't watched it yet, but I bought it for my girlfriend because she likes horror, and I recently bought her the new It movie, and she was like, "Why did you buy me something you like?" Rephrasing it like, you like movies, why did you get me a movie? And I was like, well, this is my way of saying that I kind of want to watch the movies that you want to watch sometimes, you know what I mean? Instead of sitting down and watching my stuff, I want to try to throw myself in, because I can't stand horror, you know. And when you said that you were going to talk about 2 horror movies, I was like, fuck, I won't have much to say, you know. But I do kind of want to get into that a little bit more, try to kind of fight whatever the hell's going on with me, because when I've said it before, when I go up, you know, get up to take a piss at night, bring a fucking flashlight with me, because I don't trust anything in my apartment. And so I want to do that. There was Don't Breathe, apparently, that was pretty good too. But I loved Get Out. Get Out was fascinating. But to me, the whole horror aspect was a little bit more subtle. You know, there wasn't something that was terrifying about it. It's just the idea and the concept and the message that is terrifying. So I don't know. I'd have to get to it. So The Witch is one that I have here. There was the Babadook.
Babadook's amazing. Yep, it's great.
So I have to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, again, definitely The Witch. If you can do Get Out, you can do The Witch. The Babadook is a little more jumpy, I'll give you that. But again, it's a fantastic story in itself. It's just not. It's more proper horror than either Get Out or The Witch.
All right, I'll have to check it out, because it was cheap on iTunes. It was like $4.99. Plus, they had the special features, and I was like, "Oh, I'll get that for Leslie. She's gonna love that." She hasn't watched it yet.
So
anyway, Lee.
Yeah, I've been going through a couple of films I missed last year, and I'm also trying to keep up occasionally with films that are coming out this year. So today I want to talk about Power Rangers from 2017. Maybe it was 2016. I can't really remember.
Don't remember.
Well, first, do you have any experience with Power Rangers? Is this me? Am I going to be talking like I'm some fucking kid and you guys are past
Nona and I are pretty much the same age. How old are you, man?
Yeah,
well,
no, I didn't see the movie. Didn't watch the show. It was a little after my time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was my cousin's time. I was the Ninja Turtles; they were the Power Rangers.
See, I watched both of those, and that you know, it's weird. I guess in the UK it was basically like a rerun culture. So like even the Power Rangers came out in like '93, I think, and I was born in '92. So I mean, it wasn't even like I was on the ground running with it. You know, I didn't watch it until I was like 6 or 7. But through reruns, I watched the original series, and I think I watched it up to their 4th series, which was called In Space. But like, and I see the film. At least there are 2 films that I've seen the first one. So like, I was into them as a kid. I actually even had a friend at the time in primary school. And our friendship was based mutually just out of appreciation of Power Rangers. And after we grew out of it, our friendship caved immediately because there was nothing left. We went to school for the entire 14-year stretch, and like we were kind of in the same circles, but we weren't really friends because Power Rangers, they were gone. Anyway, what's the new film? And I mean, you guys are literally the 2 people that cannot be recommended Power Rangers. Because it's absurd. Like, it is absolutely unrecommendable for anyone who hasn't got some sort of prior connection to Power Rangers.
Okay.
Which is weird for reboot culture, because I thought the idea was that it would usher in a new generation of fans and try to reap more Power Ranger money. and get a new show on the run and a couple of new films. But like this film, it starts out like that. It starts out kind of like the Fantastic Four reboot, where it's kind of like a bunch of kids get to know each other very slowly for a bunch of teenage melodrama. It's a little more grounded than the Fantastic Four Four-stick film. And the kids are really likable to an extent. They're a bit tropey, but they're generally, they've got a lot of charisma about them. The writing's quite good on that part to get a general sense of what drives them, and they all seem pretty... Now, you get why they like each other, and you get where this fits in the giant chronology of American high school fiction. But then, like, it's like a 2-hour long film, and around the hour mark, they, the 45-minute mark, they start getting superpowers, and they start dealing with that, and you could read that if you want. This is like one screenwriter, I imagine. And he's written it up to this point, and it's like how superpowers is like a metaphor for either sexuality or changing times or some shit, and so they all become superpowered, and they all have their fucking problems at home, and people don't believe they're superpowered, and it bonds them together. So it's either like a niche or something. It's a metaphor, and it kind of works for about 15-20 minutes, and then it just becomes the most ridiculous fucking film that it literally cannot be enjoyed by anyone other than people that appreciate absurdism and people that appreciate the Power Rangers. Because, it just, like, at the hour and a half mark, it just turns heel entirely. It becomes a kung fu film with the fucking original Power Rangers guitar theme playing over the top of them, and they're all really super high motion, and they're all very anime poses, and there's a lot of slow motion action for, like, one scene, and then it's a big battle with Elizabeth Banks at a Dunkin' Donuts, which goes on for about 20 minutes, and it's the most shameless ad, Is it
Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme?
Oh, sorry, Krispy Kreme, you're right. Oh,
Krispy Kreme, was it? Yeah,
I love the fact that their advertising didn't even work on me. I confused it with the other donut thing.
And here in Canada is Tim Hortons. So Tim Hortons, yes. Krispy Kreme, and Dunkin' Donuts. Those are the places.
Yeah, the advertising it's ridiculous. It's like they actually shoot it like an American advert, where it's really fucking high contrast. Elizabeth Banks actually almost takes a bite of a donut it just while she's waiting for the battle to begin, and it looks like all her scenes were shot in a Krispy Kreme car park. It's really humiliating, I thought, and also apparently not very effective. But yeah, I mean, after that, they all get their giant robot dinosaurs, and then they get pushed into lava, and then the robot dinosaurs combine and form one big transformer bot. And it's literally like incomprehensible if you have no. I mean, it was basically. I mean, as a kid, it was basically incomprehensible. You just went along with that shit. You're just like, oh yeah, that's fine. They all turn into a big robot. Oh, that's fine. They all combine their guns and they got a super gun. That makes sense. You go on with that. But when you're watching a film that has like none of those elements for like an hour and a half, and then it has all of them crammed into the last half an hour, your mind is reeling how anybody could like, oh, this is good. This is what I thought this film was.
Yeah, Power Rangers have always been a mystery to me. One of my buddies really likes the Power Rangers, and I have always had trouble with it because to me, when I remember watching, I was like, this is goofy as balls. But I came up in a generation that actually liked Voltron. When you watch Voltron, the guys, the cats and all that stuff, I thought that was great. I had action figures of Voltron, but it was an animated, TV show, which I thought was great. It made more sense. But when I watched like the Power Rangers and my cousins were into that stuff, all that hand waving and the weird costumes and the no mouth that moves, and
loved it.
I was like, the hell is going on, man?
Yeah, it worked for me. It was kind of like the next evolution of, I don't know what my version of Teletubbies was, but it is like Teletubbies, where it's a bunch of gesticulation and muttering of random gibberish words is now transplanted into these American teenagers who are doing almost exactly the same fucking thing. But I mean, the film is good as I would have expected a commercially horrible cash-in to be, and it's not recommendable, but I mean, it is a bit of a trip, so it kind of warrants maybe checking out, especially if if people actually liked the Power Rangers, I mean that's easy sold. But I don't know. I can't imagine anyone coming away from it that hadn't enjoyed the Power Rangers before and going, oh yeah, you know what, that really made me think, or oh, I really care. It was like Breakfast Club, and then at the end it was like a fucking samurai battle for no reason. It's just like, you know, it was like when you have a VHS of Breakfast Club and somebody cuts in at the very end with fucking Rush Hour. That was kind of how it felt.
Oh my goodness. Oh boy. Anyway, I don't know. Non, are you sold?
Well, I sort of tuned out when Lee mentioned that Elizabeth Banks almost bit into the donut.
Yeah, that was the most infuriating part, really.
So she didn't bite the donut.
No, she didn't. She held it. She got it like an inch away from her mouth, and then something blew up the Krispy Kreme, and she was just standing there. And she just kind of put down the donut and it cut away.
This is infuriating to me, you guys, because
okay,
she could have got some sustenance in her, and then she could go battle. It's the same sort of situation. I know I'm like, this is a ridiculous point to harp on, but
no, go ahead, man. This is great.
Remember that scene in Home Alone where Kevin McAllister is makes he sets his whole house up, and then he makes this delicious mac and cheese meal, and then he's about to dig into it, and then the doorbell rings or whatever, or his timer goes off, and
it's
then
the clock. The clock goes off.
Yeah, the clock or whatever, and he just goes, and he doesn't even take a bite.
Wow,
This is infuriating to me. It's the same sort of level of frustration.
Who knew there was an uneaten food trope that has been plaguing Hollywood films all this time?
See? It always frustrated me. I'm just like, take a couple bites. You got to be hungry. You just put forth all this energy to setting up all these booby traps. Come on, man.
Yeah, it is. It's sending the wrong message with regards to energy management,
nutrition.
I mean, not that eating a Krispy Kreme donut would have fucking changed anything on that front. Oh, Elizabeth Banks fighting form.
Moving on. Would you recommend Power Rangers, Lee?
As I said, it's literally unrecommendable.
All right. So I'll check it out this week. Speaking of weirdo nostalgia, I managed to finally sit down and watch Thor Ragnarok.
Now I know what you're thinking. How did this happen? Well, it's a long story.
Tender.
We know each other. He's a friend from work. Oh, come on.
Cool.
And I had a really great time.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to say about it because there's no real depth to the film. It's just what it is. You know what I mean?
I watched it last night, actually, in a rather good coincidence.
Okay.
And I was I had a thing for it. The familial stuff goes nowhere. It's a dead end. But the stuff with Thor's awakening, there was something there. I mean, it's not important to enjoy the film. In fact, it actually, for a lot of it, gets in the way of enjoying the film. any parts to do with familial battles and trying to find depth in Thor Ragnarok. It gets away from it being a straight up comedy, which it's really good at. But there's things. Somebody tried.
Man, he's had the same arc for 3 movies. It's his fucking hubris gets in the way. He's still chiding Hulk the entire time, the strongest Avenger and all that. And,
yeah.
I mean, Thor is probably the best example of a character that's gone pretty much nowhere. They've done things around him, but as a character, he's essentially the same guy he was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He learns a little bit in the first movie where like, oh, you have to learn how to be a king, and now he has to learn how to be the god of thunder.
Well, now,
you know?
yeah,
But
I
at the
guess
same-
this one he kind of has to learn how to be a person, though, kind of get on with people.
This one he had to learn how to be funny.
And that too.
There you go, yeah, there's that.
But, like, he has to be an actual friend to Bruce Banner, he has to actually save his people. There's bits and pieces that is more than just his fucking hubris and ego. Yeah, it kind of deals with more about how he has to get a sense of socialness about him, actually try and be something for someone, and also stepping up to the crown rather than just taking a name only and stuff like that. There are bits and pieces of that shit. I wouldn't say it's time to break out the Thor Ragnarok essays and start a fucking deep dive, but I mean, it is a different story, so you kind of got to give them credit for that. It's not nearly as important as him meeting up with a rock guy on Jeff Goldblum planet and piloting an orgy ship into the Devil's Anus. I mean, that's where the fruit of the labor are,
Yeah, I don't know. Nolan, have you seen this one?
I have, yeah. I mean, I think placing any sort of labels of importance on these films is probably a little hyperbolic.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think that I agree with you. Like, Thor hasn't really had much of a character arc. He's been pretty flat. And I think in the case of Ragnarok, we actually saw a little bit more from him. Like, I snidely mentioned the humor. Like, I think he had a little bit more to do and a little bit more sort of silliness, which I enjoyed. But yeah, I mean, it was silly fun and I enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting Shakespeare or Dante's Inferno.
No, I get it. Neither have I, but I mean, when you compare it to, like, I don't know, well, why would I compare? I'm just looking at, the whole spy film aspect of the Winter Soldier. I feel like Captain America has had a much bigger arc, in all the characters in Marvel, and he was the most boring character when they said they were going to make Captain America of a movie. I was like, really? How the hell are they going to pull it off? And they magically did. I think that he's well developed. You could see him go from, the All-American. Well, now he's the All-American boy, obviously. But I mean, from going from what he was living, the idea of bullying and all that stuff. I mean, that's kind of inspirational for kids. But when I look at what Thor can bring to the audience, I mean, laughs is pretty much what it is. I mean, Thor has always been somewhat of a laughable character.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that he's a god among men and he can barely kind of sustain any form of, for lack of a better word, empathy towards anybody. I understand that maybe in this movie that's what happened, but at the same time, he is still going through the whole gladiator process that we've seen, So, I mean, I've seen this movie before, just not as funny. Anybody that, when I was watching the movie itself, I couldn't help but think, Jesus Christ, this is Kate Blanchett's film, actually. She's the one that was betrayed. She was the one that was kind of thrown out and all that. And I think that she's come back to, for a good reason. I mean, I listened to her and I was like, yeah, all of what she's doing is pretty much valid.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
My dad too.
Exactly. But that's the thing. The film does set that up really well, and then it just kind of goes nowhere. They just kind of treat her like shit and then write her off. Yeah, that part that did annoy me a bit because there was an actual layer of depth where they could have made an executive decision near the end and go like, well, I mean, give her a break. She had a bad fucking parentage.
Did you guys read the comics?
I had a few growing up, man, but
not
I
really.
mean, not particularly. I tried reading a couple of them, and I was like, I don't have no interest in this. So he's never been one of my favorite characters anyway. So
no, and I think, I mean, I can't speak for every comic book reader, of course, but for me, I read comics, and I always, growing up, I had a I don't know. There's just a certain disinterest in a character like Thor for me for some reason.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's about like, you know, his privilege, his world isn't that interesting to me. It's a little bit too much like the myths that we were, we had to read in school. Like there's a lot of things going on there. And I think maybe sometimes that, like, because of that, he's been rendered this almost silly character.
Yeah, I mean, I that's probably the best thing. I think they learned that with the Hulk in the Avengers movie as well. When the Hulk keeps failing to be an interesting film character, make him a joke. And so they kind of, in the Avengers, they make him a joke. They make him funny. They make he's constantly just giving off one-liners and punching things, and he's a bit scary at one point. And then for the most part, he's like beating up Loki and cracking wise for the Hulk's sake. And then, they've just done the same thing for Thor when they realize that audiences just are not engaging with this meathead fucking alien god. They really want to try a different angle, and then they found it in the same way and it's kind of neat that they've paired the two together that have both went through the same transition. Two characters that just do not translate well to people because there's nothing to translate. There's nothing like, the man is monster myth. Whoa, that's a real deep one. But I mean, make him a joke, make him a funny character, make both of them a funny character, and make him a buddy comedy across space, and you're like, you know what? This has a place in my heart.
I agree. I 100% agree with you. I had a fun time. It was a really fun movie. And one of the things that I really like, the Tessa Thompson character, the Valkyrie, I was a little bit on the fence because I was like, didn't we see this type of character in Aquaman in the Justice League? And I don't want to bring it up too much, where that she's kind of reluctant to going back. She's a bit of a drunk, and I was like, well, we've seen this character. And there was one of the aspects of the new superhero movies that I'm kind of getting a little peeved about is that none of these guys want to be a hero. They're always like, oh Christ, I don't really want to do this. And that's the one thing I think that I adore about Thor is the fact that he desperately believes that he is meant to be a hero. He just doesn't know how to
endearing.
do it. Exactly.
Well, every time he's about to say, because that's
movies.
what heroes do, he gets interrupted by some fucking slapstick incidents. Because that's the film wants to make a joke out of the fact that he's so fucking heroic. But it's true. I mean, I guess it's because very few people that go to watch films feel like heroes. So they might want to start with somebody who doesn't automatically just register as, I'm a hero, this is what I do, this is my job, and I've always felt content doing it. I've never seen myself that way. I'm not jumping in front of your fucking train or bus to do something. But I relate to, like, your alcoholic Tony Stark whose ego allows him to be a superhero, or your reluctant Bruce Banner who just kind of gets prodded in each and every direction passively until he shows up at the right place and lets somebody else do the work for him inside him. I mean, yeah, those characters are way more interesting to me than a guy like Thor who's just like, I'm the rightful prince to a king alien species, and I will be king one day, and I've always been bred to be awesome.
I had a quick question for you guys. I wonder if you guys were annoyed as I am about the fact that they just have to show Natasha's face now, and Banner just shows up again. The Hulk just kind of deflates back down to human form. It's like the kryptonite in Superman. She seems to be the one thing that calms him down, but I'm a little bit weirded out by that. Why did they make this character that? You know what I mean? Black Widow is such an interesting character on her own, but now when I'm watching the Avengers, she's always there to kind of calm down the dude. Now even in Thor, it's like, oh hey, look, Natasha, oh, and then he goes back down, and I was like, how long have I been the Hulk? And I'm kind of like, it feels like she's a somewhat of a buzzkill. Without having to say like that she's actually
how cruel.
But it's just, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a boring thing, and it takes no time whatsoever. Hulk just turns around and it's like catnip. He's just like, woman.
I don't see it as base as that, but sure. Non, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have any issues with it. I mean, I think it, if we really wanted to deeply explore it, I think it could be problematic in that she's the woman, she's, are we ascribing to some certain gender, ideals, about a woman being comforting, like, who knows? Like, we can probably explore that, but I think I think it works for me because they did have that connection before. And so I don't have a problem with it really.
Yeah. I mean, I think like Whedon's script for Age of Ultron was all over the fucking place. And that was one of the weakest elements of it because it lent itself so well to backwards gender roles. That it did make me fucking uncomfortable. But I think what they're doing in Ragnarok is making it kind of salvageable because now the Hulk is him pretending he doesn't care, Banner cares, Hulk angry. Hulk just is outlash, where Banner is the thinking, feeling human being of the relationship. And so when Hulk sees Black Widow on the screen, he's kind of all those repressed feelings that he's got from just not looking at her face and not thinking about the fact that he's fucked up so badly and took himself off and abandoned her, and it's all becoming, the guilt kind of takes away from the fact he's angry, and that's what's making him power down. So it to me, that was a kind of smart decision because we know it's anger that fuels the Hulk, and when it's any other emotion, it's Banner. So yeah, it made sense. Okay. I felt like it was an all right choice. I think they're just trying their best to salvage what is a difficult start
Beauty
for
and the
that
Beast
relationship. Trope? Yeah, I mean, it's not that they can't make that smart. It's just that they haven't yet.
All right, fine. I'm the only one, so that's okay. But anyway, so that's it. And obviously, Jeff Goldblum, I think he should start a Mars colony. He'd do well.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe they overthrew him at the end because it seemed that I think they'll just restart. He's just so charismatic and adorable that why wouldn't you?
It's just so weird because now you put him in any movie, that guy's no longer an actor. He's just Jeff Goldblum in everything.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, he was always Jeff Goldblum. I don't really care about his acting chops. I like Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum. I have no issue with this.
Can you show up and be yourself, sir?
Yeah,
sure, no problem.
Seth Rogen gets away with it.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on from Thor. Thor, yeah, and if you guys haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. It's a really fun time. My daughters and I laughed the entire time while Leslie was knitting on the couch. So it was pretty cool. Noan, I want to go back to you. I want to know what other horror film that you brought us today.
Sure. This one is not as recommendable, but it's called Open House. It's also another new straight to Netflix, Netflix produced horror film. 2 actors, I don't really know them. I think one of the guys was in 13 Reasons Why, also a Netflix production. Cool. Anyways, the conceit is that one we've seen before, someone dies and mother and son go and live in this house owned by a friend. And that house is currently in sort of open house mode. And so every Sunday, I think it is, they have to leave the house for the day and people come in. And at one point in the movie, they talk about, hey, isn't it weird that we just have this house open, we're living there, but people come in and, we just let them do their own thing. And so that's the idea around the which is an interesting concept. I don't think I've seen that specific thing before. Yeah. But the execution is really dumb and silly, so which was unfortunate.
It seems like the potential for it to be really dumb is higher in my head than it really paying off, because as a metaphor, it's already kind of shaky, that idea that people can trace around your life or tramps in and take all your take up a part of where you live. I get the idea. That's pretty transparent, I think. But I think it's a really bizarre concept, a way of trying to approach that pretty applicable thing is to have an open house is a very niche way of telling that story.
I know.
Is that what it goes for? Is it really just the creepiness of other people in your life?
Basically, I mean, they end up they start hearing weird things around the house, and they're like, what's going on? They start seeing oh, my cell phone was on this table. What's going on? And pretty soon you realize someone has, and you don't know who until the end, but someone is coming into these open houses, maybe staying the night, in a closet, who knows? and they're creeped out by this, and eventually it doesn't end well for them. But yeah, it's a silly concept. I think it's an interesting idea, but you're right. It's like high chance of silliness, and they don't pull it off.
All right, so one less horror movie for me to watch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I take it.
That's right.
Scariness wise, is it on the Jason could watch barometer, or is it more traditionally jumpy?
There was actually a couple scenes that made me a little like ugh, but it's not really like there's no jumpy moments. There's no jump scares like that really. It's just some creepiness and.
Sure. Easy comparison. Mother came out last year. Did you see Mother?
I didn't.
About an open house.
I still need to see that.
Yeah, man, I could call.
I still need to see that. But
well, there you go. Well, I can almost guarantee that once you do get around to that, you'll see these two things that came out not months from each other and go, "Whoa, did I bet on the wrong horse?" But
Mother,
yeah. Jason watched Mother. This was one of his favorite films of last year. So I mean, creepiness is slowly creeping into your radar.
It's because to be honest, I think the reason why is because I keep hearing good things about these movies, and there seems to be a lot of good production value behind it. There's sometimes that I enjoy watching the sloppiness of it all, but at the same time, they're good ideas are good ideas, and if they're going to be good ideas in a genre that I don't necessarily have the stomach for, well, I have to kind of develop the stomach for it. And so I'll put myself in that situation soon. But yeah, cool. Lee, do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
Yeah,
sir?
I'm going to talk quickly about the Greatest Showman.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. I am not a stranger to the dark.
You're still just the tailor's boy.
Hide away.
Better luck with your next job.
Those people will never accept us.
This isn't the life I promised you. Not even close.
But I have everything I want.
Girls, I think I've had an idea.
Look out, 'cause here I come.
I'm putting together a show.
It's a place where people can see things they've never seen before. Okay.
I'm not scared.
Who's that?
And what is your act?
I don't have an act.
Everyone's got an act.
People aren't gonna like it if you put us on the stage.
Oh, I'm counting on it.
I believe those are the words of a scoundrel.
A showman. Whistling just a showman. Don't listen to them. They don't understand yet. But they will.
So tell me, do you want to go where it's covered in all the colored lights, where the runaways are running the night? Impossible comes true. It's taking over you. This is the greatest show.
Does it bother you that everything you're selling is fake?
Did these smiles seem fake?
We have more protesters every day.
A bunch of freaks!
You're risking everything you've built.
Well, how do you think I built it?
The world was ashamed of us.
It's everything you ever need.
But you put us in the spotlight. You gave us a real family.
Have you no shame?
Father, the world is changing.
It's everything you ever need. And it's here right in front of you. Just where you wanna be.
No one ever made a difference by being like everyone else.
Which is a rousing success, apparently. If people don't know what it is, it's Hugh Jackman is famous con artist / circus runner P.T. Barnum, and it's an all singing, all dancing, old fashioned musical where P.T. Barnum meets his wife and forms his traveling circus and various other exploits related to his somewhat biographical life. And to be honest, I hated it, and not for I imagine the reasons. In fact, almost assuredly not for the reasons everybody else who has a reason to hate it. which is that it has absolutely fuck all to do with P.T. Barnum, which is true. He is it's notoriously inaccurate in portraying his very dubious and shady life. Which is one more reason not to like it, but it's not the real reason I don't like it is because I hate all the music in it.
Okay.
The songwriters, and I'm literally pointing fingers because it's at least the second time I've hated their music. They are Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, and they are the songwriters for La La Land, which I also hated the music for, and I not as much as The Greatest Showman, but I also hated the music for La La Land. I guess because in La La Land's case, it was faux Hollywood glitz. It was very transparently new age pretend jazz, trying to be jazzy or trying to be big. It was trying to pull itself off as one of those big musical scores, but it only really ever hit big band music. Like you would hear on a street corner in a very nice town. I never really gotten bored of it. Even though it's all well performed and it's all nicely put together, it wasn't really my thing. And The Greatest Showman is the next level in twee crap.
Okay. Kevin's gonna love this, man. Hi, Kevin.
I'll be honest, right? I've been not out of touch, but mostly apathetic to modern music as of late. I've always considered myself pretty in touch with music, and I in the last couple of years I've come around because there was a good period where I hated everything on the radio, and then in the last couple of years I've actually started to enjoy most of it, even if they are kind of bland nothing. I've started to enjoy music again, pop music. And so this is a soundtrack that's supposed to be like of its time. It's supposed to be big anthems for the current millennial trend on the radio. And I hate it. It's all so false. It's also it's all got the pretense of sound, and it's not even like the music today isn't false. It's entirely manufactured, and so it's hard to justify because it's music, and music is hard to be a critic about, which is why I'm not a music critic. But but it's that same. It's just rousing anthems about high spirits non-stop and piano ballads about the days we had, and there's so little chorus work and there's so little parts that are actually good, and the worst part is that they are catchy, but when they actually just in the bad way, in the way that you don't want it to be in your head, they just stay there for a while and they never develop, and when you look up what they're the lyrics are a blank nothing of just schmaltzy crap smacked onto a page and then people sing it out loud. It's a tedious film to watch on that level, and then on top of that the story is all over the fucking place and edited really slapdash in a way that makes it was almost experimental for a biopic, because it felt like it was purposely taking the piss out of how biopics are put together, and that they don't have a real sense of form or structure because that's real life. But then it does try to have form in that it actually does try to neatly tie a bow on this terrible man's terrible life and terrible career. And it's like the whole package was miserable, and like from the halfway point I was like, when's the point when I can stop being here and listening to this and finally go? And I was doing it for my wife, who also hated it, and we were just sticking it out together in mutual unappreciation. But yeah, that's my...
But did you guys pay to go see this at the movie theater?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why'd you just not walk out? Why'd you just leave? Why didn't you just leave?
I don't know, Jason. I don't know. I thought it might have been like this paradox where I thought she was having a good time and she might have thought I was having a good time. We were in it together. We were just stuck there being angry at the screen. But it was terrible.
No, do you and Jess leave the movie theater anytime? Do you guys walk out?
It's rare that we do. I can't.
Right.
I can't recall a time we did. Usually we stick it out.
All right, cool. That's how it's the dead air between couples that allows everyone to continue being unhappy. I take it, Jason, you then haven't seen it, but Nolan, I think you said before we started recording that you have seen The Greatest Showman.
Yeah, greatest movie alive. Just kidding. No, it's fine. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I did enjoy the music. I had fun with the music, but all the rest of it, you're spot on. Like the way it's structured is problematic. The Hollywoodizing of this, pretty awful man's life is, problematic, and the story is, confusing at times. Other than that, I enjoyed the music, but other than that, it was pretty poor.
You say that's where it's like a taste thing, and maybe it's because I take music too seriously. That's maybe my problem.
You take it however you like. That's fine.
Yeah, I've taken it really badly in this occasion. But that's The Greatest Showman. I don't want to talk about it. It's really miserable.
That's all right.
Experience.
Yeah, so I don't really have anything else to talk about. I do have a couple of titles, but I think I'm going to save them for another time because they're more stand-up comedies. With the ones that I mentioned were science fiction. No one was actually talking about horror and all that. So I'm going to call it a day on this one. So is that okay with you, Lee?
Oh, good.
All right. So I want to thank Mr. Non Wels from You, Me, Empathy for coming on today for the Atlantic Screen Connection. Well, we'll call it discussions for lack of a better title. We'll figure it out as we go along. But sir, can you please tell us where we can find you online again if you want to be followed, but be sure to plug your show so that people can go in and tune into what you have in store for them.
Sure. Thanks, guys. You, Me, Empathy, you can find that at youmeempathy.com, and on Twitter, Instagram at youmeempathy. Also on Patreon, patreon.com/youmeempathy. And the last thing I need to say is that this is a public service announcement. Gleaming the Cube, the movie Gleaming the Cube, if you have not seen it, it's now streaming on Amazon Prime.
Is that... What is it?
This is information you need to know. The public needs to know.
But tell us more about this Gleaming the Cube, no?
You've never seen Gleaming the Cube?
No, I mean, unless this is a well-known thing. I thought this was a new film. Is this something everybody should know?
No. So it's a film from the 80s with Christian Slater. It's a skateboard movie. It's silly fun.
Great. Yay, there we go. That is my favorite kind of public service announcement, which is it's just bizarro crap almost no one will indulge.
That's right.
Amazing. Well, thanks for being our first inaugural guest, or possibly our 6th inaugural guest, if this is the same show that we did last summer.
Happy to be here.
Great having you, man. Lovely talking to you.
Excellent. And that's it for us this week. Lee, do you want to plug anything, or do we just continue on?
No, I've got nothing. You can follow me at Lee Paul Brady, and I'm also doing our Twitter at the moment, so you can follow us on Twitter at AtlanticSC, and that's me.
That's me too. You can find our Facebook page at Atlantic Screen Connection Podcast on Facebook. Don't find it anywhere else. Be sure to follow our Instagram at AtlanticSC Podcast, and that's it for us this week. My name is Jason Michael. I was accompanied by Non Wels and Lee Brady, and we're going to be catching you sometime soon. Be sure to check out the movies that we mentioned, and that's it. Be sure to send us feedback on whatever the hell, like you guys, we watched Thor, Jason's wrong, or whatever the hell. Feel free to fire back. If you enjoyed Open House, I'll be happy to forward everything to know. And if you are a huge fan of The Greatest Showman, as Kevin Brackett is, be sure to give him a follow at Kevin R. Brackett and tell him that he's not alone in enjoying the film as much as he did. So that's it. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.